All right, I think I'll get started. So first off, I think Ed and Zachary, is this your first meeting with us?
It is.
It is, yes. Very exciting.
Yes. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I do recall sending an email out to the rest of the committee, kind of explaining who you both are. So now they get to see who you are. So I don't need you to do introductions again, really, unless anybody thinks it's needed, but welcome to the committee. I'm glad to have a full body again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So usually I get too many pieces of paper here, but starting with the agenda. So everybody was able to see the link, I hope, and get the budgets and so forth. So call the meeting to order first. Welcome to all that are here and the rest that are coming. Any public participation? Seeing none. We have 2 minutes to take a look at. The first set of minutes for approval was the tri-board meeting. That was on the 21st. I have a hard copy of each of the minutes. So I would just open it up for any comments about the minutes that are associated with the tri-board meeting. Again, that was on the 21st of October, 2021.
This is Dan. I'll move approval.
Okay, second,
Second.
any discussion? Okay. I don't usually do a roll call unless it gets to a point where I don't know if we were at a majority or not. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes that were in attendance, say aye.
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 Thank you. So minutes are approved for that. Excuse me. Next, hi Dawn, welcome. Next was the minutes of October 28th, which was one of our regular last meetings before the fall town meeting, I believe. So minutes before you are from 10:28. Anybody have any comments, discussion on the finance committee minutes?
I'll move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Second.
Evan. Second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. That would move us to any comments relative to FY '23 and the forecast is the next item on the agenda. And Dan, I didn't talk to you in advance, but just maybe if you want to just touch at a high level the way things looked. I think from the last time the forecasting committee get together, they looked better than they did in the past, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't too much to add from the last session in the tri-board meeting, and last time we talked about it. No numbers have changed yet that I know of. So the same comments hold. We're in much better shape than we thought we would be. And we should be in good shape for our 2023 discussions, as long as none of the departments decide to go crazy on us.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else involved with forecasting? Anybody else have anything else they want to add from the forecasting?
Dan, could you opine about the probability that any of the departments will go nuts on us?
I will not opine on that.
I am cautiously optimistic that won't happen. Let's just go there. And we're going to be looking at budgets this evening, all associated with town hall departments and so forth. And I believe the subcommittee met. Evan, is that you that would give a backdrop of that?
It's me. I'll give you a similar overview I gave to town council on Monday night. And then,
Thank
you know, if Teray, Dawn, or Zach want to add anything, they're welcome to. You know, as usual, it's a pretty uneventful group of budgets. Not a lot of surprises, not a lot of focus points in terms of new stuff. I think the number is 2.3%. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, overall, which to me is a good increment. There are some other departments I'd love to see come in at that number. So it's a good number. And I will say, because I know someone's going to ask the question, I think it's the COA budget. There's a $12,000 appropriation somewhere in part 2. And it's clear that over the last 2 FYs, we've spent, I don't know, 1,300, 1,900. We've spent well below the appropriation. So I asked about that, like you'd expect I would. And it's relative to like gas for the senior shuttle, which, you know, throughout the course of the pandemic hasn't been used. So, and especially now, it's probably not a great time to cut an appropriation for gas expenses. So you'll probably ask anyway if you forget, but that's the one thing that stood out to me. Teray had some good questions about some line items that might pique your curiosity if he wants to speak to those. But other than that, you know, we're used to seeing what we're seeing here from these departments.
Okay. Very good. Teray, you want to add anything, or are you good?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would highlight is I think 2 categories I focused on was obviously the overspend of a portion of the legal budget. I think that Steve had reported to us that the legal department had to retain some expert witnesses associated with some litigation. And being one of the lawyers in the room, I clearly understand why the cost would have been incurred. But I think that line item is almost double what was budgeted for the fiscal year. So I suspect committee members are going to see that and may have questions. And Kevin was probably going to speak a bit further about that. I think all of my other questions were just like minor things, just to make sure I understood the transaction, but that was a big one that stood out.
Okay. Dennis?
On the council on aging, it seems like the personnel budget went down about 12,000. Is that because they've got less hours for those 2 part-time employees, or I don't see any reduction in people?
There was a retirement in council on aging, so the person that is replacing the outgoing person is coming in at a lower rate. Also, there was some overlap in there. And some is being paid out of a grant and some is being paid out of the operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else from the subcommittee? We'll get into the budgets next. Okay. Kevin, do you want to bring up budgets? Do you want me to bring up budgets?
What I'll do is I'll just go down the list, Jim. I'll give a brief overview, and then if there's questions, try to answer the questions. And if everyone's all set, we'll go on to the next budget.
All right, so do we want to put it up on the screen? I guess was my comment. Whatever the rest of the group wants. So basically on the, from the link, he'll call it a budget. You can bring it up on your own screen, or we can share whatever you, we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Or both.
Yeah, how do I share? That's my first question, so.
There should be down at the very bottom, there should be something if you, let's see here. No, I don't even have
Jim,
it.
it says share screen.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, and it's green. You're absolutely right.
All right, let me make sure my screen is appropriate
Oh,
to
not that
share.
screen.
Yeah.
What's the first budget? Excuse me, just before we go there, Evan, did you say 2 point something? So there's a summary sheet that was in the packet, which I'll put up in a minute, that shows every budget that's going to be going on tonight, and it shows 3.78 for the
Right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, that might include the second round of budgets. I was using the number that we were at with the first round of budgets in the town hall grouping. So I'll let Kevin clarify that.
Sure. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, there is something, actually, the first group of budgets, it's up 3.78%. One of the uncontrollables in there, the election expense budget, we have 2 additional elections scheduled in fiscal 23. We only had 1 in fiscal 22. We have 3 budget elections scheduled for fiscal 23. that was the biggest increase in the first set of budgets. It was $25,850. If you took out that exception, the rest of the budgets, they were up to 2.3%.
Okay,
All right, so it's 3.7.
can folks see what I just shared?
Yes,
Okay, great.
it's good.
Thank you, Brian, for the help. So for the two new folks, this is a spreadsheet that Kevin / Steve put out in advance of every meeting. So basically, as Evan alluded to, Evan and these folks went before town council on the 10th on Monday, and then they come to us on a Thursday. And so as the season progresses, this spreadsheet will just continue to grow. Basically, it'll show all of the budgets you're going to see at a particular meeting. He references it. It says at the top, to town council on the 10th, and then we're the same week. So this will just continue to grow, and it's a good reference point for all of the budgets, if you would. So.
Hey, Jim.
Yep.
Just, I think I don't know if this is Steve's spreadsheet or not, but I'm pretty sure I-1 should say fiscal year 22, not 21.
Yeah, that's correct.
I was about to ask the same thing.
That's a typo.
Yep. Okay. What would be the first budget?
The first budget we'll do is the accounting budget.
Okay,
Uh,
let's see if share the screen. And let's see how lumpy this gets tonight. So go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, the accounting budget, we're recommending an increase to this budget of $19,390 over the current year. This increase breaks down $18,397 to the tax levy and $993 coming from a water and sewer transfer. The increase in personal services, $16,390 is all contractual and negotiated increases. And then there is, under contractual services, we have a professional services line item, which we use to pay for the town's yearly audit. We increased that $3,000. Main expenses within this budget, there's a $28,000 line item for equipment rental. We combine several departments. We have the town council, accounting, benefits, tax collector, building, council on aging, in the treasurer's office. We have copy machines and a couple printers, high-speed printers within those departments. We use that line item, equipment rental, to pay that bill. We also have, under professional services, the town audit, $60,000. We use a local firm, Powers and Sullivan. They're up at the head of the lake. And the total budget request for fiscal 23 is $463,099, with $441,395 coming from tax levy and $21,704 coming from a water and sewer transfer.
All right, I don't know if I can see everybody because I'm sharing, but speak up if you have a question, please.
This is Brian. Not that it's huge potatoes, but a couple of the salaries are up 1.1%, 5.6%.
Yep.
What's up with that?
Under the clerical contract, this year, they were doing away with the lowest step and adding a step within the pay scale. So there'll be a 1-year bump in clerical for people that were maxed out, that they added a step. So they got a little bit more of a bump this year. But that should level off next year.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess also in the talking about small potatoes, like the I mean, you seem like you've got a baked in $1,500 cushion in materials and supplies, like you haven't sort of come close to it either year, and you don't look like, it looks like, again, you're gonna come pretty sharply under. Do you still need the 3,000, or should that really be 2?
Well, good question. We're on a lot of these budgets, if you remember going back the past few years, Steve and I have been working with the department heads. And if they turn back money at the end of the year, that's great. We don't want to penalize them going forward. Because
Okay.
what's gonna happen is if people start seeing their budgets chipped away at $1,000 here, $2,000 there, they're gonna find some way to spend that money by the end of the
There's
year.
gonna be $500 in pens. that comes out.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
High quality pens, though.
Any other comments?
Well, that's the thing that I noticed is that a lot of these budgets are in the 30% range for their, what they've expended through half of the year. And I think that's to your point, right? That's what that's about is.
Some of it is timing. Some of it budgets are expended more in the second half of the year, depending on what's coming up, like the tax collector. Their major mailing is in February, so you won't see, you'll see more of a bump in February and March than you will in the first half of the year.
Right. I mean, overall, you're at 45% with including transfers, of what was budgeted. So, I mean, that's right where it should be, basically.
Right.
Terrific. Thank you.
What else? All right. With that, we'll move to the next item, which is legal.
Next budget is the legal budget. We're recommending an increase to this budget of $3,612 over the current year. This all is in personal services, and is for a negotiated salary increase. The
You guys
expenses
see
are-
excuse me, can you see the legal or do I have to switch it?
We see it.
You see it? Thank you.
The expense portion of the budget is level funded. Main expenses here, outside professional services, $60,000. That's used for labor attorneys and other expert services as needed. The total budget request for fiscal '23 is $194,797. As Teray has mentioned, in the current year, we are overspent on the outside professional services. We at the beginning of this fiscal year and the end of last fiscal year, we did settle a lawsuit with regards to the Walton School, the construction that was going on up there. We did have to go out and get legal expert witnesses. They are quite expensive. That's what's showing up, the expended through the 12/28/21 column. We will be looking for a reserve fund transfer sometime later this spring to cover that shortfall.
Did we know about that one before? 'Cause I don't recall hearing anything about the Walton having a lawsuit against it.
Yeah, there was something with the contractor had brought suit, and we settled it right at the tail end of fiscal '21. The bills for the expert witnesses didn't come in until the beginning of fiscal '22. It's happened right at the end of the fiscal year and the beginning of this fiscal year. I'm not
And your
sure.
hands up? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm curious on that same issue. So 117 has already been spent. The other contract, I mean, are we going to see another 30,000 for the rest of the year, or 50,000? How much is that line item going to increase between now and June 30?
I do not foresee anything out there that I know of right now that is pending any type of legal settlement or services. But that's as of right now. That could change tomorrow. I don't know if Joe Bertrand's on the call or on this call tonight.
I didn't see him earlier. Yeah, he was, I didn't have him checked off. He's not here
Okay.
today, right now.
Okay, because he probably could give some insight on that Walton School issue, where I think it originated with the permanent building committee. But that has been settled, but we just had to pay the expert witnesses the cost for that at the beginning of this year.
Okay, so I guess right now the expectation is reserve fund transfer about $60,000, obviously barring additional changes, but that's what we're looking at the moment.
Correct.
Anybody else?
Do they have any money left in their appropriation for the Walton School that this could come out of?
No, I think that was all spent, Dennis.
Good.
And Kevin, so I thought you said that like the expenses have already been expended and the bills didn't come in until, some period later. And that's sort of why we're in this position now. Did I hear that right?
What happened was the settlement happened right at the end of last fiscal year. So there was a payout that we paid and settled the lawsuit at the end of last fiscal year. But at the beginning of this fiscal year, the bill came in for the expert witnesses that we used to help settle the lawsuit.
But in the end, the lawsuit is settled and that's
Correct.
no longer hanging over us.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
So the 60 that's there for this coming year, that's for the audit?
No, that was in the accounting budget. This is the legal budget. And this is for outside professional services for the legal department.
Okay.
Dan, are you all set? Your hands up? Anybody else? All right, and if, obviously anybody, new folks, you have questions, please just bring it up. If you want an explanation of anything, the layout, this is how most of the budgets look, so. Next one.
Next budget is the tax collector's budget. We're recommending an increase to this budget of $7,665. This increase breaks down $5,299 to the tax levy and $2,366 to a water and sewer transfer. This increase is all in personal services and is for contractual and negotiated increases. The expense side is level funded. Main expenses within this budget, $5,200 for printing and binding. This is to print the preliminary and actual tax bills. $32,500 for postage. That's to use to mail out the tax, real estate tax and motor vehicle excise bills. Total budget request, $297,475, with $236,632 coming from tax levy and $60,843 coming from a water and sewer transfer.
Anyone? Dan, has your hand up?
Yeah, I didn't think Kathy was part of a union.
I'm sorry.
Kathy, you said this was negotiated, but I didn't think our tax collector was part of a union. Is she?
Yeah, she piggybacks.
Oh, just a pig. She's not a member. You're just piggybacking off their settlement.
Correct.
Okay.
It just seems a little bit odd that she's has a different rate of increase than some other department heads.
Why is that, Kevin? Can you share?
Actually,
Math on that one.
before we get to the why, can you explain what you mean, Dan, by like, how is hers different?
So
Percentage wise, it's
her-
different.
hers, she's being piggybacked off the union contracts. But other department heads clearly are not, because they got a different rate of increase.
And would theirs be lower or higher than Kathleen's?
The one I looked at was higher.
Right.
Right, the Kathy piggybacks off the supervisory union. She's at max step. So the max step, you'll probably see you'll see a less of an increase if you're at the max step than if you go. I think step 8 is the last step in the supervisory contract. So if you're at step 5 and you go to step 6, you'll see more of an increase than if you are maxed out at step 8 and you stay at step 8.
Okay, so let's go back to the accounting budget.
Yep. The
And
accounting budget, I'm sorry, on the accounting budget, we have no one in the supervisory union.
but I'm talking department heads. So department heads are not consistent.
Right, I don't follow the supervisory scale.
Is that a decision by Mr. Mayo? Or is that, or you have your own contract?
I serve at the will of the town administrator.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand why Kathleen has a designation of an S15, you know.
She's been following that scale for quite a few years, I think.
Yeah, but who says she follow? I mean, I think the question, Kevin, we don't understand is who decides about following the scale versus not following the scale. Does she not serve at the whim, so to speak, of the town administrator?
No, she's an elected official.
So nobody has any discretion over that salary one way or the other? If somebody wanted her to have 4%, can somebody give her 4%?
You know, if there was a good case made, I suppose you could take anyone and put them wherever you want. You know, for some type of uniformity, you know, certain people. The only one else I can think of similar to Kathy would be Betsy in the town clerk, where she's an elected official also, and she would follow the supervisory scale also. And she's an elected official. Or piggybacks off of the supervisory scale.
Evan,
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So Kevin, just to be clear, so as a department, I understand she's elected but absent some specific statutory specification regarding her salary, like it's common practice for somebody who's non-union to sort of reflect another union's increases, because otherwise you get all kinds of equity problems and frustrated people, and it's not worth it over a point.
Right.
Is this, so she's following the supervisors union scale, right?
Correct.
And so I'm not understanding what the discrepancy is. Who's seeing a discrepancy and like it's one thing, like Kevin's not union. And by the way, you don't want your CFO to be union. You really don't. So
Kathleen's not union either. That's really the question I'm asking, Evan.
yeah, but she's an elected official. But so I mean, what's the alternative, by the way, Bill? Right?
She's not union either. So any elected official is going to get 2% this year. Is that consistent through the budgets?
Well, she's also a department head. She might not be union, right? And she might be elected instead of appointed, but she's a department head. So to me, it makes sense to say, if we gave, I might argue with you, Kevin, that it's too much, but that's a different conversation, right? Like if you're giving all your department heads 3 points or whatever this is,
right,
have them just follow the scale. It's not worth screwing around with the people who are non-union and trying to squeeze some pennies out of them because they're not union. It's not, and that's coming from me, by the way. And I like to screw with pennies. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, just as a side note, I think Betsy is unchanged year over year, as I recall when I looked at it, but we'll get to that.
That might be
That's all.
statutory,
I'm
right?
just trying to understand the process and consistency around the process, Evan.
Yeah. Yep.
Certainly, we have other elected officials, and I guess as we go through this, we'll see if they get, 2.5% raises, or if somebody somehow has other discretion to give them more or less.
And just to be clear, Bill, I'm not arguing with you. I'm
Okay.
just saying
All right.
in my experience, it's common for non-union employees who serve in the same capacity as, on the same level, so to speak, organizationally, as other employees who might be union, for them to reflect their salary scales.
I worked in the union environment, and I was a manager, so I understand that completely. Yep.
Stefan,
This is more of a question than a comment, but I was just curious if, because she's an elected official, by applying her salary grade to some collective bargaining agreement, mitigate some conflict of interest.
I don't know
I'm
the
just
answer to
curious if that may have been one of the thoughts or a part of the thought when she was provided that particular salary upon election.
anybody have any thoughts on that?
Is Dan's hand still up or?
Yeah, I was going to ask a different question, so I was waiting for somebody to answer
Right.
the previous question.
Well, we can just get Steve to clarify. That'd be the simplest when he gets back from.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, so Kevin, is that position, does that position have steps and lanes as it's described here under her name?
There are steps and different levels within the supervisory scale. If you, as you'll see with some of the budgets that will come, let's see, do we have any other today? We have the town clerk. Next go around, I think we have the recreation director, department heads, that if they're at max on the scale that they're piggybacking off of, they're probably looking at a 2.5% increase. It will be higher if they're not maxed out on the step scale. It could be 2.5 plus another 2.5. Because they're going from step 5 to step 6. But once you hit step 8, you stay at step 8, and all you're getting is a COLA, not the extra step increase also.
All right, that helps with me a little bit. Appreciate it.
Well, the town clerk's under a supervisor's step,
Correct.
not a clerical step. So I think Steve's got to clarify why one goes off of a clerical union, the other one goes off of a supervisor's union.
No,
Right, yep.
both
go
are
ahead,
going
Kevin.
off the supervisors.
Yeah, Kathleen's
Kathy-
the supervisor level and the town clerk is as well, right?
Correct. They're both on the following same scale, I think, different levels. One's in S14 and one is in S15. So there is a difference of pay grade there. Could deal with longevity, that one's been here longer than the other.
I made a note, Dennis, the question on it. We'll follow up with Steve as well. And, all right,
Yeah, fine by me.
Dan?
Yes, so I guess one of my questions, and this may be a Steve question as well. I mean, I agree with, sort of mimicking or following sort of the supervisors union, unless it gets to the point where it's no longer competitive or it's too generous for an elected official. In other words, have we looked at other cities and towns, our peers, to see what they're providing for a salary for, tax collector or town clerk? And I realize this is probably a Steve question, but it'd be nice to know that somebody looks at these pays and said, yeah, Stoneham pays their tax collector the same or thereabouts, just to make sure that we're competitive. That's my thoughts anyway.
I got it.
Jim,
See,
can I
they're elected,
take-
they're elected positions, so they should be advertised, and if they shouldn't get increases if it's an elected position.
Can I just have a quick answer at the end that, I know Steve does look at that, you know, I believe there is some type of manual out there that shows different department heads, what they get paid in certain cities and towns. I know that because I was fortunate enough several years ago that there was a salary adjustment made to my line item 4 or 5 years ago that brought me up competitive where other individuals that do my type of work in surrounding communities where they're at. So yes, Steve does look at that from time to time.
Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, I got those questions. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess this is more a comment than a question. I think the other thing, as we're all talking about elected town officials and salaries and whatnot, I mean, I think we should remember our not too distant experience of, like, you know, if an elected town official gets annoyed enough with a town board squawking about their pay, they do have the option of getting elected and not work. So, no, 2.5% seems fine to me.
Thank you. Next budget is,
Next budget is the assessors budget. We're recommending an increase to this budget of $14,129. There's an increase in personal services, $6,729, which is for contractual and negotiated increases. And also under contractual services, there's a professional services line item for $7,400. The reason for the increase under contractual services, the Department of Revenue has a new requirement for the tax assessor. Each year, he has to get a written yearly appraisal for each utility company when he certifies his values to them to become certified. So the increase there is to bring in outside service to help Victor acquire those yearly appraisals. Total budget request for fiscal '23 is $253,448.
Comments. Seeing none.
Next budget, the town clerk's budget.
Mhm. Where is it?
Last one, yep. Okay, we're recommending an increase to this budget of $10,007. This is for negotiated and contractual salary increases. We'll point out that the town clerk does follow the supervisory pay scale. The expense portion of this budget is level funded. Main expenses within this budget, the printing and binding line item that's used to print the town code books, bylaws, dog licenses. This line item is also used to bind old birth, death, and marriage certificates. Total budget request for fiscal '23, $247,946. This department does collect various fees. They collect approximately $70,000 per year from various fees.
Comments. No comments.
And if you saw on the salary that they were just looking at, the increase there is the COLA plus a step increase, where that position was going from a step 3 to a step 4.
Can we add the period when she was elected, like Kathy has? So we know the
Oh,
year she
okay,
was elected, so that we
Yeah.
can keep track of it.
sure.
And so I mentioned earlier that she was level funded. Obviously, I was incorrect. Bill?
Well, I just, Betsy is a specific example, only my memory might be wrong, but I feel like there's been other years she doesn't get any raise.
That's right.
So what's different about this year for her to get a 5.5% raise? These are the things I don't understand, Kevin.
Yep.
And, maybe, I don't know who answers the question. I'm not trying to grill you here, but it's just
No.
seems very inconsistent, and I have a hard
Yeah,
time.
we had a long
understanding.
discussion about it a year or two ago, where she was unchanged.
Right, we did. And so
Yeah.
that's why you just kind of look at this and all this, now she's 5.5%. I mean.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
pretty confusing.
Okay, all I can tell you there, Bill, is that is the salary increase from an S14.3 to an S14.4. That's what the numbers project out as. As Dan had mentioned earlier, you do look to slot people into where surrounding communities are paying certain positions. Also, longevity comes into effect also. So
Yeah.
I think there's several different variables.
It might be helpful for things like that some further explanation be given, as part of this process. For example, if it's, there's a salary survey looking at other communities
Sure.
and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I appreciate, just because I don't understand 2% on one and 5.5% on another. I mean, I just don't get it. And again, we're going to go through other budgets, and I'm sure we're going to see other things that.
Sure, they do bounce around, Bill. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you listening.
Yep, no problem.
Evan? Evan?
I mean,
you up?
isn't it a step increase there for Betsy? So it's the COLA on top of the step?
Correct.
I mean, that's just contractual, right? So after so many years of service, you get an extra bump on top of your COLA. And in the case of the tax collector, she's at her top step. She's reached however many years of service where she doesn't get any more seniority bumps unless they're
Correct.
negotiated in the future. Is that all this is?
That's correct. That
Right.
that once she gets up to I think it's a step 8, that should be maxed out.
Yeah. They're great. And don't get me wrong, everybody, I'm not arguing with anybody. They're great questions and they're the right questions to ask. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and again, 2 years ago or a year ago, she was level funded. So if you're elected
Fair.
and there's a step process, what is it? I think that's the general statement. So,
No,
yeah.
that might have been why she ended up, maybe they put her on a step scale then. I'd have to go back.
Yeah,
and
no,
double check,
understood. Yep.
To see what was going on there.
Dan?
Yeah, thanks. So I went back and I looked. Last year, she got a 7.33% increase and she stepped from 2 to 3. And the year before, it says that she went from a 2 to a 3, but I guess she really did not. And she did not get any kind of a COLA increase either. So for her, fiscal year 21, that was the year that she got a 0 increase.
Yeah.
And then 7.3, and then now this year, just over 5.
Right. So again, I have a few notes and general statements are about the consistency or lack thereof. I'll summarize some of those questions for Steve after he's well rested. Everybody good with this one?
Yep.
Right, next.
Next budget is the election and registration budget, recommended level funding. Main expenses here are personal services, $17,100 used mainly for the census workers. Under contractual services, this professional services line item, we use an outside company that comes in, helps us with the census mailing, printing of ballots when needed, and the maintenance on the voting equipment. Postage, we have a $6,500 line item, which is used for absentee ballots. Total budget request, $37,700.
Level funded, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Comments, questions?
If we had 3 elections this year and only had 1 last year, why don't we see this fluctuating?
It's a different budget. It's coming
Different
right
budget.
up, I think.
Yeah, that's the next budget, Dennis.
But this is the printing of the ballots, you said.
Right, there'll be a little bit of money left in probably printing and buy, the printing, and then also the postage that we probably won't use all that because we're only at 1 election. So it does fluctuate. Whatever's not spent will be reverted back to the general fund.
What are the street lists? We didn't spend that this year.
We haven't spent that yet. Betsy's trying to cut down on the number of street lists. It's a booklet that the town clerk does. It lists every individual by precinct and then townwide. It's a helpful tool for, the schools, different department heads, certain public officials, certain citizens. But Betsy has been putting that online. She hasn't been spending that money as much as in past years. And that will probably be one of the line items we will be looking to see where she's going with spending on that and maybe reduce it in the coming years.
Okay, for now. All right, and this budget is the election budget, Kevin. This
The
is
election
where there's-
expense? Correct.
This-
Requesting an increase of $25,850. This is the one where we're increasing the number of elections from 1. This year, we just have the town election that was scheduled. Next year, we have the state primary, the state election, and the town election. Estimated cost of an election is almost $13,000. Total budget request, $38,775.
The Voc budget, the Voc voting, is that also in here? Did you mention that, the Voc school?
No, that would come out of this year's budget, but we don't have to pay for that. The vocational school is picking up the full cost for that election. The only thing we'll be on the hook for is the additional election we're going to have for filling Peter May's seat.
Right.
On town council,
For 60 days.
correct.
Not that I have an opinion. Anybody else?
I get the distinct impression that you do have an opinion.
Shall we move on?
Next budget is the Finance Committee budget. We're recommending level funding. Main expense within this budget under dues and memberships, $3,400. That's for the Finance Committee members to be part of the MMA. Total budget request, $7,060.
Comments on this one? Evan, I thought I asked you to kind of try to double this. Did you not get that email?
I must have missed it, Mr. Chairman. I actually wanted to eliminate the one of those line items there that we never spend.
Yep.
What is that? 2 there.
Recommendation
So I'm afraid we're working in conflict, Mr. Chairman.
So be it. Understood.
I mean, in fairness, we don't use that line item. Like, I know it's chicken stuff. It's like $3,000, but
No, but
You know,
we
can
talk
lead by
about these,
example a little bit.
no, we talk about these items, like you say, if year over year it's unused, we keep stressing to Steve to try to eliminate it, like you said, so.
Yeah, I'd love to lead by example there in that regard, but that's
Yep.
up to the committee.
Right. Jim, just wanted to point out on that line item, the recommendation book. Probably a few years ago, we used to send a recommendation book that we use for town meeting. We used to have that done outside. Sherry in the town clerk's, town council's office is now doing that in-house. There is still a cost. It's being absorbed through the town council budget. There is time and supplies used. Probably should be transferred over to this budget. So, you know, I can make that transfer going forward.
Seems appropriate. Anyone?
Great, Evan. So you gave him $2,800 versus us.
That wasn't exactly where I was going, Kevin. I was looking for sort of like a little tiny, just a little tiny bottom line reduction, but
Yep.
I digress. You beat me down enough between you and Steve.
Very good. Conservation, I think, is next. Is that right?
Yeah. Conservation budget, we're recommending an increase to this budget of $1,013. Again, this is all in personal services and is for contractual negotiated increase. This department consists of 2 people, each working 10 hours per week. Total budget request, $49,385, with $44,885 coming from the tax levy and $4,500 coming from available funds. The available funds are wetland filing fees that if someone needs to file with the Conservation Commission to do stuff, that money is used as an offset to this budget.
Comments, anyone? Yes, Ed.
Just a question for Kevin. Kevin, the wetland filing fees, so those revenues flow to the general fund or they go to a revolving fund? I'm just curious on how you handle that.
They do go to a revolving fund and then we
Okay.
appropriate out
I see.
to this budget.
I see. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else?
Can we just add the data higher to the other employee? That's all.
Yep. Next budget is the planning board budget. We're recommending level funding. We did move some money around on several of the line items. We reduced advertising, printing and binding, postage, office supplies. We moved that money into the books and publication line item. This is for the town's community and economic development director. She has an online subscription to CoStar Realty. This gives her real-time information with regards to available commercial property in not only within the town of Wakefield, but also in the state and in the region. And it just helps her with regards to how she's mapping out development here in the town of Wakefield. Her salary is in the town council budget. This budget here is mainly to cover the expense for the planning board and the cost of their meetings. We do bring in some revenue. Last year, fiscal 21, we brought in a little over $10,000. Year to date, so far, we're on pace to bring in about $12,000. Total budget, $12,975.
Kevin, I noticed that almost none of this budget has been used thus far.
The books and publications is the big one, advertising. All the other stuff are, there's not much there. That's why we looked when there was a request to go up on the books and publication line item. We did look around like office supplies. That's why we cut that from 2,500. We cut that way back for fiscal 23. And we moved that money into the subscription line item, the books and publications, to keep this budget level funded.
Dan?
Thank you. So I'm curious, the income items that's come through the planning board, is that through grants that she's written and applied and received? Is that the grant writing income, or where's that income from?
What do you mean income? Oh, no, people have to file before the planning board for certain developments. So depending on what's being submitted to the planning board, there is a fee that gets charged. So similar to the Board of Appeals.
Like an application fee and a processing type of
Correct.
thing, right?
Right.
Okay, so do we have a grant writer?
We don't have a grant writer per se. There are certain departments that have individuals within each department that do write grants. The Health Department has one, DPW has one, Emergency Management has one, the Fire Department has one.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So, Kevin, the income side of this is not reflected here in this budget, is that right? Like, we don't see those numbers?
Not in the budget, no, that, I am just giving you, the revenue does not show in this, what you see on the screen, correct?
I don't know. I mean, it could be like ridiculously difficult or something, but it seems like in some of the budgets, we do get to see where there are chargebacks from other departments and things like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean, that if one department is doing something for another department, there would be some type of charge off, yes. Like on the tax collector, there is a charge off because they handle the water and sewer bills. So there is a charge off back to water and sewer for that process.
And then there are other departments where they're collecting fees, the building inspector, for example.
The building, that, yes, but that money would, I will tell you what that number would be or what we have received.
But it will never be reflected here.
Correct.
Okay. It seems like it would be helpful to kind of have numbers like that just to see what kind of money we're getting back in. But, you know, it just occurred to me, it's not like I've been sitting thinking about it overnight.
No, that's why I usually bring it up when we do these budget recaps, that, you know, if there is a department that does produce some type of general fund revenue, I will give you like with what we collected last year or 2 years, where we are year to date, just for a perspective of how things are going within that department.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so Brian, in terms of the fees and fee income, it's something that I look at because the DOR gives us those numbers. So when you look at the numbers I have for local receipts, and there's a breakdown by the various types of receipts like excise taxes and hotels, meals, and so forth. The fee income is in there. So I actually, I include it in total, but it's not broken down by department for each fee. And that's something that Kevin's got, but it can be had from the DOR website.
Thank you.
What's the inconsistency just from conservation to this? Isn't it similar in that sense, or are they totally different?
Totally
Like
different.
conservation, you showed revenue, right? The fees, I think we said just a minute ago, right?
Right, there is a mechanism, Mass General Law, that we can set up the wetland filing fees as an offset to the conservation budget.
Ed?
Just to add, the general fund revenue is not appropriated. You know, these budgets we'll see in front of us are appropriated. A vote has to be taken on that, but general fund revenue is not appropriated, whereas as Kevin has said, we'd have to appropriate the conservation revenue to the general fund. So that, I think that's the reason why.
No, it absolutely makes sense. I was just thinking that it would be nice to have those numbers here documented so we could at least see what kind of revenue streams a given department is bringing back, not like a legal thing, but like a helpful to understand thing.
Sure.
Dan, I assume you're all set? That's a yes.
That hand was
Um,
lowered.
Board of Appeals, is that right?
Right. Next budget is Board of Appeals. We're recommending level funding. Main cost within this budget is the cost to have their hearings. There's advertising, the cost of the clerk. Board members do get a small stipend. We estimate 50 meetings per year. Some years it's more, some it's less. When they're more, we usually come back and ask for a small reserve fund transfer. This one here, we do collect revenue. In fiscal 21, we collected over $66,000 in revenue. Year to date, we're at a little over $7,500. Last year, we had one of the bigger filings was the head of the lake. So depending on when they file, where I don't think they're done with the Board of Appeals with their hearings, but money was collected last year. And I think that's still an ongoing, they're still having meetings with regards to that project
Yep, they are, correct.
going on. So the money was collected so far this last fiscal year. Total budget request, $27,800.
Questions, comments, level funded. Very good. One more, I think, Kev.
Yep.
Council on Aging?
Council on Aging. Last budget, Council on Aging, we're recommending a decrease in this budget of $13,020. This reduction is all in personal services and is due to a retirement. There are contractual and negotiated increases included under personal services. The expense portion of this budget is level funded. Main expenses within this budget, oil and additives, which is gas for the senior van. Evan had mentioned that that's been down, pretty much COVID related, that they haven't been taking as many trips. It was starting to pick up in or around November. And then this new spike in COVID, it's been dropped back down, but Judy's hoping that come fiscal 23, they'll be back in full operation. Also on the front cover page, there is a line item for Mystic Valley Services, $6,275. That's used for Meals on Wheels and in-home care provided by Mystic Valley Services. Total budget request fiscal 23, $247,300.
Comments?
So I noticed that the motor vehicle parts, we've spent, 166% of what was appropriated thus far this year. It's only $300, but I'm just curious what's going on there.
It doesn't take much to they get up to $800. I'd have to double check that to see what they had to buy. It would have been something for one of the vans,
Sure.
but I could double check to see what that is.
Supply chain, et cetera, et cetera.
Any other comments on that budget?
Well, I guess the flip side of Brian's question is you've only spent 790 of the 7,800 you had in there for oil and additives.
Right.
So I'll take, they can spend 300 more on parts if they can save that much oil and gas.
Yes,
Yeah, we're not filling up. We're doing all right. Where do we start filling up, right?
exactly.
Okay. That's the budget list, correct?
That's it.
All right. Let's see, any committee comments? Anybody want to bring up anything? I just have a couple of other items. Go ahead if you do.
I would like to revisit the election that we're paying for the 3-month position. I assume that there's really nothing we can do about it because there was an election and people, and the voters decided. But it just seems like such a waste.
Well, the town council decided, I think, if anybody, right? Didn't the town council make the decision to do that? Is that right?
No, it's
No.
actually, it's a state law because there was enough signatures. The
Signature, sorry,
council
yep,
had,
got it. Yep.
they had no choice. They had to say yes to the election.
Yeah, the only choice they had is the timing as to when they called it.
Right.
Stefan, you, oh, go ahead, Dan.
I'd say the other thing I was going to say on committee comments is we have a draft budget for the library, and I've shared it with the subcommittee, and we're going to try to attend the next Zoom call that the library board of trustees has to get further clarification. So no real surprises in the library budget, nothing outstanding.
Stefan?
I had mentioned this before, I think late last year, after the tri-board meeting, but during the budget reviews in 2021, there were a number of department budgets. I think one in particular that happened to be large impact, but the school budget that we reviewed. There were some transfers associated with the IT department. I think we touched on that slightly at this meeting, but I wanted to find out if that's something that could be revisited. Just as a recap, there was my understanding is that there were transfers that were put in place that impact the IT budget. They were put in place a number of years ago. And since that time, there have been, I think, somewhat substantial, or at least impactful changes that have occurred in the other departments that may impact how the transfers are being spread across those groups.
So the best way to revisit that, Kevin, were you going to say something?
Yes, so I think when, I'm not sure what you're going to say there, Jim, but there is an IT subcommittee that when they go over the budget, that might be a good item for them to look at with Todd, our IT director, that to get more.
Who's in charge of that subcommittee for the finance committee? I'd like to talk to them.
Yeah, who is that?
It's me.
Yeah. No, but Stefan, your point was from last year as well, like the school transfers, right? Wasn't there some end of year transfers that precipitated some of that dialogue?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that we have not in the past, at least in the past couple of years, discussed during the IT subcommittee meetings. It has come up, but I don't believe we had a full view as to where those transfers were all coming from.
Okay.
And those are inbound to the IT budget? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And just to hop on that, like, since we can, and since Brian's on both of them, the next Thursday, the finance subcommittee is meeting with the school committee's finance and facilities subcommittee to sort of go over their budget. We met with them once in early December, but this will be more formal, and hopefully then at next week's meeting, we'll get a time for us to have the school in to do a prelim before their actual budget, because I think that's worked very well the last few years where we have them sort of give us the quick half-hour presentation of where they think they're heading. You know, the main thing for them is they have what is it? I think 3 main contractual budgets coming up, and it's 30% of their workforce, but it's not quite that big a percentage of their overall personal services budget item, because it's the teachers aren't up this year, it's sort of everybody else. But we're meeting with them next Thursday, and we'll have more to share with you the following week, and then hopefully, I think it's probably the subsequent meeting, we'll have the school committee or somebody from the finance subcommittee at the school level to sort of give us the highlights of where they think we're heading versus where they're coming in when they come in March. But I think just to get to Stefan and Brian's point is maybe let's bring that up to next week at the schools as well, just so that it's not just on the IT group, but it's also trying to understand from the school side as well what's going on.
Stefan, as far as your question goes in the the transfers, whether it's service level agreements or that sort of thing, it seems like something that obviously Steve's going to need to be part of, right?
Yeah, it seems like all the subcommittees were all stovepipes in one shape or form. And these transfers, they go across many stovepipes. That's
right.
Not any of us have have fingers in. So someone, I guess, in either Steve, I'm not sure if Kevin could assist, but
all right.
But yeah, some centralized assistance is going to be needed.
All right, I'll take that. I get that. That'll be another action item that I'll pass on to Steve as well from comments from today about some sort of sideline discussion about it for a little more detail. Okay. Anybody else?
I have my hand raised.
Sorry, thank you.
So when we meet with the IT committee, we one of the topics of conversation is IT security. And justifiably, the department head is loath to discuss their problems with IT security in a meeting which is recorded and stored on the town's website. So my question is, being a relative neophyte when it comes to Robert's rules and the rest of parliamentary procedure, what do I need to do to have that conversation but not make it part of the public record?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just, forgive me for interjecting without permission. I would just say that's probably an open meeting law conversation, because what you want to do is an executive session, right? And so I think you should just, copy Steve and send an email to Tom Mullen and say, how do we do this without divulging our cybersecurity secrets? How do we get into executive session on this? I would like to think that OML has a mechanism for this, but it could be outdated. Generally, I think it's a good law. I don't say that about many laws. That one, I hope that's covered, but executive session's a function of that. And you can't meet as a public body behind closed doors unless it's a specific reason for executive
session.
Yes, exactly. So
that's very interesting. And when we met in person, you could see there's nobody else in the room, so it was okay to have the conversation. But there's clearly a different risk.
If we're doing it on Zoom, we got to record it, right? I mean, no, it's really about. Listen, I'll tell you what. I've had plenty of meetings in municipal government where I feel like I can keep up. When I was sitting there listening to you and Stefan talk about cybersecurity, my head was exploding, and it was really cool to just listen to you guys, because you're really experts in the field, and it's so important that we're in compliance with our insurance policy in that regard. So important, and so it's really. I'm glad you brought it up, Brian, because I forgot about it, frankly, and it makes sense that you wouldn't have, but. We got to find a way to do that.
All right, I'll reach out to our town consigliere to get the update on that.
So Brian, one thing that when this came up on the subcommittees, I don't know, 10 years ago, because we never recorded, we didn't, no minutes were ever taken and so forth. And then Tom Mullen came in and said, well, if there's a quorum of the subcommittee, now it's an open meeting and a public meeting, you have to record everything. So one solution, and I would get Tom's, Mullen's response to this, but one solution I think is to just meet with your IT folks one-on-one, just the two of you. And so you don't have a quorum and it's informational only. I think that is one of the options, but there's probably more.
I hear that, but quite frankly, I want to make sure that the committee is there, because they'll obviously have different questions and ideas and perspectives than I do. So, especially Evan.
And also you don't get to, like, if you meet one-on-one, Brian, that's fine. And like, it's not useful for me to meet one-on-one with the IT director because I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. But if you go meet with the one-on-one with the IT director, and then you want to go share it with even one other person on the subcommittee, because it's only 3 people, you've now committed an open meeting law violation because of serial communication, right? Which is a
Right.
concept that they've ruled on. So,
Yep.
Yes, go meet one-on-one with the IT director all you want, but in terms of like getting the committee involved, that might be the only solution, by the way. Like Dan's solution might be the only way if there isn't a specific provision.
Well, but the school committee does it, right? I mean,
Yeah, but Dan Lieber's watching them, so they get caught usually. I've been
no,
caught.
what I'm saying is that they do executive session portions of their meeting. I just don't know what the mechanism is or
Oh, no,
the rationale or.
You can do it. I don't know that cybersecurity is a reason to go into executive session though, right? So I don't know. That's why I have to ask the attorney.
If ever there was a reason.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. You're absolutely right.
All right, I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Me too.
We'll see about that. Anybody else? So the only other thing I wanted to mention, for everybody's reminder and for new folks, I did send out the schedule. I think I put it in my email and I think it is in the link. But so the schedule was sent out. And again, the schedule speaks to when it goes to town council, and we're on the same week as it says on the schedule. So our next meeting is 1/27. And if you have the schedule handy, but anyway, there's another list on there from Treasury down through Reserve Fund, through professional medical. And again, so for your own purposes, for your own scheduling, these are when the meetings are. You make as many meetings as you can. We appreciate it. And we always generally have a quorum, and it hasn't been a problem lately. So just want to make sure you saw that. Obviously, your subcommittees are identified, and folks should be reaching out based on this schedule. For example, DPW, I helped chair that, and that's a little later on, so we won't be meeting yet for them, for example. But as you see the schedule, and importantly, as Doug mentioned, he's a subcommittee lead for the schools. We're going to get them in. We generally have been trying to get them in twice, once informally, and then once when they're scheduled on this docket. So more to come on that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that the sending around that document with the schedule of which budgets are going to happen when is terrific. Thank you.
Welcome, and I defer to Steve as usual for coming through with a nice schedule like that. So,
unfortunately, I now have no excuse for not being ready for the IT budget when the time comes.
Fair. Kevin?
Jim, I just want to make sure, did you get the second bet? You just talked the Treasury budget through professional medical. Did you get that group of budgets already?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll double check with Steve. I'd forward them along, so you should be getting those shortly.
Yep.
If there's any questions beforehand from anyone with regards to any of the budgets, and if you want to just reach out either to me or Steve, so we can be ready if there's a specific question you may have, so we can make sure that we, if we need to research to get an answer, we can do that.
Good. That's kind of the end of the docket. Anybody else bring anything up? Comments? I was
As
hoping it would be.
Vice/social chair, I'd like to say, we're all a little overdressed for a Zoom meeting, so I expect us to do a little bit better at that next time. Edward, just full disclosure, it isn't a tie required environment here. And I'm astonished that so many of us are in collared shirts. I mean, it's normally flip flops.
Well, I'm coming from work, so I had to wear it.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. And I was hoping we'd be face to face this spring, I have to say, and maybe we still will be or not. And I hope everybody's safe and healthy. Number of people I know obviously have COVID positive, but thankfully it's mild with the latest variant, and that's actually a pretty good thing. So that's all I have.
I hope the heat's working in Brian's house soon.
I do like to wear
a
a
motion
face.
for more abuse or for an adjournment.
So move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you all. We'll see you in a few weeks.